Okay, hopefully you're able to follow along with the first example of how to use elimination. I'm going to go over a second example that's just a little bit more challenging. Specifically, you'll notice that we'll run into a little bit of a snag when we do step one. So the steps are the same. Step one, identify which variable has the opposite coefficients. Step two, add the equations. Step three, solve for the other variable that wasn't eliminated. Step four, plug in to find the first variable, the one that was eliminated. Okay, so for this, step one, that's where we're going to run into some trouble. Identify which variable has opposite coefficients. Remember, opposite coefficients was another way of saying what we're looking for when x is positive in one equation and then there's a minus x in the other, or you might have a positive y in one of the equations and then a minus y in the other equation. So we're looking for one of them to have a plus and a minus and for the numbers to match, the coefficients to match. Now, if you look at these equations, x and 2x, those aren't opposite, those aren't opposite. They're both positive, and the coefficients don't match. So x won't cancel out. If we look at the y's, we have minus 4y and plus 3y. Well, they are opposite, but the coefficients also need to match. They don't match. So when that happens, when the numbers in front of the variable do not match, you need to do an extra step before you add them together. And if you take a look at my hint that I gave, multiplying the equations sometimes helps you get there. So I'm going to show you what we need to do when situations like this happen. When you figure out if there's a variable that's kind of in the right direction of opposite coefficients, you should try and multiply so that when you multiply, they end up canceling out. I'll show you what I mean. For the top equation, I'm going to multiply the top equation by 3. And I'm going to multiply the bottom equation by 4. When I say multiply the equation by a number, I'm multiplying every single thing in that equation by that number, every single term by that number. So 3 times x, 3 times 4y, and 3 times 1 for that top equation. When I multiply the top equation by 3, the resulting equation is 3 times x, which is 3x, minus 3 times 4y, which is 12y, equals 3 times 1, which is 3. That's what happens to the first equation when I multiplied it by 3. In the bottom equation, I'm going to multiply everything by 4. I'm going to multiply everything by 4. When I do that, when I do that, I know it's not great. My drawing's kind of iffy on this video, but when I do that, 4 times 2x gives me 8x plus 4 times 3y, which is 12y, equals 4 times negative 42. Now, if you use your calculator, I don't blame you. You get negative 168. All right. Hopefully, if you look at these new equations, now that we've multiplied them out, if you look at these new equations, you might notice something interesting is going on with the y's now. We've met the criteria that we need in order for something to get canceled out. So now we can do step 1, identify which variable has the opposite coefficient. After we did that multiplication trick, the y's are the opposite coefficient. So step 1, done. The variable that has the opposite coefficient is my y. So now we're going to do step 2, add the equations together. When I do that, I'm going to circle them in the same color like I did last time. The x's will combine together, the y's will combine together, and the plain numbers will combine together. We end up getting, if you bear with me, we end up getting 3x plus 8x, which is 11, x. The minus 12y and plus 12y, if you think about it, negative 12y and a positive 12y, they cancel each other out. They get eliminated. The y gets eliminated in this step. So far we have 11x equals, if I can adjust that, equals 3 minus 168. That's a negative 165. And if you need to, check your calculator, like plug it in if you need to. Now that we have 11x equals negative 165, I can now do step 3, solve for the other variable. According to this, that other variable is the x. Remember, the y was the one we identified having opposite coefficients. That means for step 3, we're going to have to solve for x. So to do that, divide both sides by 11. Divide both sides by 11. On the left-hand side, those 11s cancel each other out. We are left with, on the left-hand side, x equals, and then a negative 165 divided by 11 is negative 15. Cool. So now we have part of our answer. That's awesome. We have that x equals negative 15. Wonderful. That's great news. Now, you might be asking yourself, cool, we're done. You're not done yet. You still need to do step 4, plug in to find the first variable. They're talking about the y. So you can pick the top original equation, you can pick the bottom original equation, you can pick the top new equation, the bottom new, it doesn't matter which equation you use. What matters is that you plug in negative 15 for the x and then solve for the y. Just because I love using positive numbers or like pluses, I'm going to use the bottom original equation. 2x plus 3y equals negative 42. Now, since x is negative 15, that means that it becomes 2 times negative 15 plus 3y equals negative 42. Cool. So I plugged in the 15 for the x because guess what? That was the answer we found for x. Now I can do 2 times negative 15, which is negative 30, plus 3y equals negative 42. Cool. At this step, I'm going to add 30 to both sides. And if you're not sure why I'm doing that, it's because I'm solving for y at this point. I'm solving for y. When I add 30 to both sides, the minus 30 or the negative 30 and this 30 that I'm adding to both sides cancel out. And of course my thing isn't working. And then what remains on that side is just the 3y, the positive 3y, equals negative 42 plus 30, which is negative 12. At this point, we're going to divide by 3 on both sides because the whole point is to figure out what y equals. We know what x equals. Now we got to figure out y. The 3y divided by 3, the 3's cancel out, and we are left with y equals negative 12 divided by 3, negative 4. Awesome. That means I have my other half of the answer. Y equals negative 4. Negative 4. If you want to be super professional, like a mathematician, you'll know that the correct way to write your answer is x comma y. Whatever answer you got for x, comma, whatever answer you got for y. According to this example, that's negative 15, comma, negative 4. And that's how you use elimination, with the extra challenge step of multiplying in the beginning in an effort to eliminate one of the variables for step 2. I hope this helps, and if it doesn't, rewatch this video as many times as you need, pause it along the way until you really understand it.